talk about property, we're going to talk about property rights, and we're going to talk about a bundle of rights. The concept here in the United States is you and I actually don't own the land, the real estate. What we own is the right to use the land. The thought is the land was here before you and I got here, and hopefully it's going to be here after you and I leave. But what we actually have is we own the right to use that property. We call that a bundle of rights. We have the right to use it, possession, the right to transfer the property, to encumber it. We have the right of enjoyment. Let's define those a little more clearly. When you talk about use of the property, you're talking about being able to use it for any legal use. When you talk about possession, you're talking about a right, of course, to occupy the property, but you also have the right to exclude people from the property. That's why the law says that the police, the officials, have to have a search warrant before they can come into your property, because you have that right of possession. You also have the right to transfer the property. You can sell a property, of course. You can give it away. You can will it in a will. You have the right to encumber it. What are we talking about there? Of course, put a mortgage on the property or a deed of trust. And you have the right to enjoy the property. Now, when we say the right to enjoy, we're not saying that you're going to have a good time there all the time. What we're actually talking about is the right of quiet enjoyment. Quiet enjoyment says that no one else is going to infringe upon your property ownership. For example, if they build a sewer plant down the road, there should be laws in place to prevent that smell from coming over your home and destroying your right of quiet enjoyment of that property. That's what we're talking about there. Now, the mnemonic there is going to be UPT: use, possession, transfer, encumber, and enjoyment. And that'll help you remember those. Now, the idea behind real property, especially here in the U.S., is that we own property to the center of the earth. We own the land that's on that property. We own anything that's permanently attached to that property: trees, bushes, houses, buildings, etc. We also own anything appurtenant to that land. And there you can think about easements. We're going to look at easements later on. And then anything that's just immovable by law, that it can't be moved. But let's define that a little bit more clearly. Now, if you'll suffer through my drawing here, we'll put a tree on our land here. And then let's build a house over here. Now, when you talk about property, property can be divided into different sections. For example, above your property, we have what we call airspace. Now, most states will say this. They will say that you own to the top of what you actually use. So, for example, in this situation here, this guy owns to the top of the chimney. But maybe I put a television antenna up here. Now I own to the top of my television antenna. Well, then maybe I get interested in ham radio. So I put a ham radio tower in, and now I own to the top of my ham radio tower. But at some point in time, we're actually going to get into the public airwaves. I know, that's an airplane. It doesn't look like one. Okay. At some point in time, we're going to get into the airways, and that's going to be a problem. Now, what a lot of airports have done is they have negotiated what's called avigation, A-V-I-G-A-T-I-O-N, easements over land that surrounds the airport. In that way, then, the airplanes can come in and they don't have to worry about buildings being built in front of them. And, of course, we all know what happens when you mix buildings and airplanes. Now, the second division of the land here is going to be the surface rights. And, of course, the surface rights are going to have to do with anything that's on the surface of the property. And there's maybe a variation there. We'll talk about that in a second. And then we have subsurface rights. Now, typically, your subsurface rights are going to be minerals, and gas and oil. And sometime, and I'm hearing that, some of you are saying water. But water is going to depend on the state that you're in. For example, I'm familiar with some states where water belongs to the surface and it's a surface right. In other states, water is going to be a subsurface right. So it's just going to be depending on the state that you're in. So you're going to have to check that to see where water belongs in your particular state. Some states don't differentiate between minerals and gas and oil. They just say anything under the ground is going to be minerals. Other states say that there are minerals and there are gas and oil, and they're two separate entities, and you can sell them separately. So again, it depends on the state that you're in. But when you talk about that gas and oil, you have to be able to get it out of the ground. And so typically, if someone buys the gas and oil rights underneath your property, they have the right to come across the surface of the property and build an oil derrick. I don't draw derricks real well. To get the oil out of the ground. Now, because they have that right, we call the subsurface rights the dominant estate in this situation, and we call the surface rights the servient, servient estate. Because what's happening here is the surface is serving the minerals and rights, the subsurface rights. So the minerals, gas, and oil become the dominant estate, and then the surface rights become the servient estate. So you get that concept that's going to help you understand what's going on there. And of course, we can sell each one of these separately. If you're in a state that recognizes minerals and gas and oil as separate entities, you can sell the minerals under your land to one person, you can sell the gas and oil under your land to somebody else. You can sell the surface rights to somebody else, you can sell the water rights to somebody else, and you can sell the airspace to somebody else. So you can cut this same piece of property into maybe 5 or 6 different owners. In addition, you can sell a portion of the gas and oil or a portion of the mineral rights. So maybe you sell 50% of the mineral rights and you keep 50% of the mineral rights. That's permissible too. That all works within that context. Okay. Let's go on here. Let's talk about water rights. Now, when you mention water rights, we're going to call them riparian rights, the right to use the water flowing in a river adjoining the property. Now, the mnemonic hook there, of course, is riparian river. Depending on the state that you're in, it's going to depend on whether that landowner next to the river can actually draw that water out of the river or not. So that's going to vary state by state. So you need to check your state laws to make sure you know what's going on in your particular locale. So, river, riparian. Now, when we talk about the rights on an ocean or a lake, we're talking about littoral rights. Lake, littoral. That's the mnemonic hook there. The rights of a landowner of land bordering the shore of a lake or ocean, the land is owned to the mean vegetation line. Well, what that means is this. We'll erase our subsurface rights and our wonderful airplane here. Now, in talking about those littoral rights, this is the water here, okay? You know what those are? Those are seagulls. Right here we have the mean vegetation line, okay? And this is the beach right here. And depending on the state that you're in, it's going to be dependent upon it, how the ownership of that beach is handled. Some areas of the country, it's considered private property. It belongs to the person that maybe owns the land here. Other areas of the country, that's considered public property, and the beach belongs to the public. So again, check your state laws, make sure that you know what's going on there. But when we talk about littoral rights, we're talking about ownership, and they say that you would own this property here to the vegetation line. And in states that say that, they'll say that the beach is public, okay? They will also say this, that if the vegetation line moves, maybe we get a hurricane that hits here, okay, and it kind of redistributes the beach and moves that mean vegetation line back here, okay, that means that the public has gained land and this homeowner has lost land. That's what we're talking about when we talk about littoral rights. Now, the littoral rights along a lake again, are going to be dependent upon the state that you're in. In some states, you own right down to the lake. The state where I first started practicing real estate, we sold property by the number of feet on the lake shore. So it was so many dollars per foot along the lake. That's the way we sold it. In other states, you own to the vegetation line, and then somebody else owns the property between that line and the lake. So again, check on the state that you're in.